Hey guys, what is up? Ioki here, bringing you a brand new patch 12.9 tier list for the support role. If this is your first time on the channel, make sure that you guys are subscribed so that you don't ever miss any support-related content. We've got educational content, we got coaching, we've got goofy off-meta builds and guides, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you are subscribed. It really helps the channel and lets me know that you guys enjoy the stuff that I'm making. So that being said, this is patch 12.9, going to be a support-focused tier list, not for any other role. But this is a little bit of a weird patch because this is the last patch before the massive durability changes in 12.10. So we're going to be making a new tier list once that patch drops because that is going to be a massive game changer. But I wanted to make this tier list in the meantime because it has been a while since I've let you guys know my thoughts, and I get people asking me on my stream all the time, you know, is this champion good? Is this champion bad? So here we go. We're not going to be spending too much time on tier 5 because, as it says, these champions are trash. I do not recommend you play these champions in the support role. And for anyone curious, yes, I have seen Redect in support, and yes, it is quite bad. So moving on up. Now, these champions are a little bit better, but still not anything that I would recommend playing in the support role. These are like, I would say these are like almost viable champions. You know, you got Malphite support, one of my absolute favorite off-meta supports. You're just going to build him full AP, one-shot people. It's a good time. He's very low econ. He really only needs one item to be one-shotting most ADCs, but he is incredibly easily countered by just buying Merc Treads. Scion, very cheese reliant champion. Same with Shaco. You know, if you don't pop off in, you know, laning phase and abuse bushes, and if you're not very familiar and like comfortable with the champions, these are not good in the support role. MF support, I would say MF gets put into the support role a lot, and it's all because of one pro match. I think it was a pro player by the name of Gorilla played it as like a specific counter match to Zyra support and like a pro match like literally years ago, and that's what started MF support in general. It's not good. It was plugged into a very specific matchup, and if you're just going to be playing it on its own, you know, you can go full AD, you can go full AP. So there's the one strength of the champion, but you're also putting two marksmen into the bot lane, which is never a good idea. Poppy is like the counter pick support that isn't good enough to make it into the counter pick tier. So if that tells you anything, the champion's just not good in the support role. She's just much better in top and jungle. Camille, she's one of those champions that everybody wishes worked as support, but unfortunately just can't cut it. Ahri, I almost moved Ahri up a little bit because ever since her rework, she is just a better champion in general, but that doesn't necessarily, like, it didn't buff her support in general, and it's not enough of an improvement of a champion to bump her up to tier 3. So if you're not like an Ahri one-trick pony, you probably want to be playing Ahri support. Volibear, just like Malphite, super fun to play in the support role. You're probably going to want to be going like a bruiser or, my favorite, a full AP build. Rammus, again, one of those champs that I wish worked as support, and there are people like Tyler1 playing it, but he's pretty much just playing it as a cheese strat. Like, he just locks it in a support and then roams all over the map, and because Rammus is fast, it works sometimes. J4, super fun to play as support. What you're going to want to do is look up one of my J4 AP support videos, because you're going to want to go Airy. And J4 has a really cool interaction where if you drop the flag, it'll proc Airy, like as a shield to your ally and offensively. And for some reason, the flag stays out there for like 8 seconds, which gives Airy enough time to proc like three times. So you use your E one time, and then you've got like 3 or 4 shields out of it. It's really cool, but super long cooldowns, and whenever you use your E offensively in lane as poke, that's leaving you open to a massive counter gank because you've got a massive gank opportunity because your E is also your escape. So not super good beyond cheese. All right, let's get into tier 3. These champions are average and should only be played if you are skilled with them or used as counter picks. And I've got a lot to say about this tier. Pyke, oh my god, my heart. So this is the patch where Pyke got absolutely gutted. I don't know how they ended up on these changes. They told us that they were only looking to nerf him in the mid lane, but it turns out the changes that actually ended up going through with him, he lost his your cuts. So whenever he ults someone, he is no longer getting your cuts. You know the little thing you click in your item and gives you 300 gold? Yeah. So now if you get a solo kill as Pyke, like let's just say you're roaming and you run into the jungle low health, you kill him, you execute him, you only get kill gold. You get nothing extra for doing that. The risk reward for playing this champion has dropped dramatically. Pyke is a champion that absolutely needs to snowball the early game, and getting that extra gold influx from his ultimate is the only thing that helped him do that. He gets outscaled by every other support in the game. I am putting him in very, very low tier 3, which sucks because last patch he was at very high tier 2. So I do not recommend playing Pyke unless you just absolutely love the champion, like I do. I'm going to keep playing him, even though I know he's going to be terrible. But I would not be surprised at all if Pyke's win rate drops 4 or 5% from this change. They did technically give him some compensation buffs, like he has like a little bit more mana regen. Now, like he gets a little bit of mana back when he lands a Q, but they also raise the cost of the mana, so it's like this is one of the harshest guttings I've ever seen for a support champion. Pyke is a dead champion right now. Leona. Now, okay, so the actual meta for supports right now is split into 2 camps. It is basically enchanters are absolute top tier, and then the things that are in response to enchanters being strong, the things that are really, really good against killing enchanters are also strong. So that usually means like tanks, like you're going to see a lot of tanks up in the tier 2 and tier 1. Leona, I think, is really, really struggling this season, which is fine because historically for the past 4 or 5 years, she's been pretty much top tier always. I really can't recommend playing her right now. She's not quite Pyke levels of dead champion, and it's always useful to have a Leona on your team because it gives you some semblance of a frontline, an easy point-and-click CC. But beyond that, Leona's kind of outclassed by another champion that we're going to get to later. Same thing with Alistar. If you're not an Alistar one-trick, he does have the nice... he's got access to like a pretty diverse kit. Like he can go in with his ultimate while also, or he can go in with his WQ while also disengaging with his W. You got Flash Q. He's a pretty good abuser of Hex Flash. So, there are champions there are players that specialize in playing Alistar, and to those players, he's still fine. But to the regular players, which is what this tier list is kind of dedicated to, I really want to play Alistar either. Rakan is always going to be a jack of all trades, master of none. He's pretty much always going to be tier 3, unless like his synergies like Xayah or like other hyper carry champions that he's super good with are super in meta, which means that like he's good by proxy. Rakan's pretty much always going to be tier 3. He does a lot of everything, but he's not the best at anything. So it's like, why lock him? Ashe support, kind of the same thing I talked about earlier with MF. However, she's in tier 3 because she brings a lot more utility to the table. She's got poke. She's got utility. She's got vision control with her E. She's got a really easy, almost point-and-click ultimate that gives your team a hard engage. The problem is that by playing Ashe, you're still putting 2 marksmen in the bot lane. So it's like basically raising a massive flag, and it's like, hey, gank me. So yeah, Shin, I would say Shin is roughly as good as Leona right now. They both play pretty similarly. I've always explained Shin as like, he's like the more risky version of Leona. He does have more damage in his kit. And he does have some things that are different, like, his ultimate can save hypercarries and stuff like that, teleport across the map. But in lane and in team fights, you're pretty much going to be playing Shin the exact same way that you play Leona. The reason I say that Shin is riskier because if Leona misses her E, it's oh well. She missed it. She doesn't get to go in. She might take a little bit of damage, a little bit of punishment. If Shin misses his taunt, he now doesn't proc Aftershock and is in the middle of their team, which he failed to CC. So he probably just dies. So there's a little bit more risk and reward there. All right, so we're talking about Taric now. So Taric is kind of in the same boat as Rakan. No real reason to play this champion over the actual tank supports. He does bring a little bit more utility. But unless you're like pairing him with the Master Yi, and you can give him that ultimate, give him those a couple extra seconds of invincibility, Taric is actually seeing more play and more success in the jungle role than in the support role. It's a sad time to be a Taric player, to be honest. Seraphine, so basically she is an enchanter support, but she's like the worst one because she's also kind of a mage. Her abilities are unironically difficult to land if they're not already set up. And that's kind of built into her kit, right? The E, you have to land both E's to even hard CC them. So she does pair well with ADCs like Ashe, but I can't really recommend playing her over the actual enchanters, which are much higher up on the list. Yuumi. Now, Yuumi is a weird one to talk about because Yuumi by herself has very, very low agency, has a lot of rough matchups, and is not going to carry the game by herself. However, there are team comps where you can slot Yuumi in, and she will empower others to absolutely 1v9. She's basically like, think about locking in Yuumi as like basically just giving an item or two to a jungler like Kayn. She pairs really, really well with champions like that. On her own, your laning phase is going to be miserable. I personally don't find the champion too fun to play. You know, it doesn't even feel like League of Legends, honestly. So for that reason, I don't think Yumi's super top tier right now. Pantheon, this basically just like a cheese support. Vex, cheese support. Syndra's cheese support. But I do think that they're on the better side of cheese supports, or else they would be in tier 4. It's like pretty much all these are cheese supports too. But like these, I feel like it's much easier to find those windows and like, you know, fight them level 1 as Pantheon with your empowered W, get resets with Vex, you know, get kills level 1 through 6 with Syndra. It's much easier to find those windows. Galio is pretty much, like I said at the beginning, these champions should only be played with if you're skilled with them or used as counter picks. Galio is a pretty solid counter pick to lock in against tank supports like Leona or Alistar or Thresh. He also pairs really, really well with certain champions that basically give like the enemy no counterplay. Like for instance, if you have a Camille and the Camille ults someone, you can ult on top of that with Galio and there is no counterplay. And when I say there's no counterplay, like this is a maneuver. This is a combo that's used in like challenger tournaments and pro play. Beyond that, Galio as a support isn't super hot on his own. Outside of those two things, he's good at countering tanks, and he's really good at pairing with Nocturne and Camille for these wombo combos. But yeah, I wouldn't really strongly recommend him. Vel'Koz. Now, you'll notice that not a lot of mage supports are super hot right now. There is one exception to that we'll talk to later. But in general, the mage supports, you know, Vel'Koz, Brand, whatever this Xerath, I forgot his name. Xerath, they're not super hot right now. Right now, like I said, it's enchanters and the things that are super good against enchanters. Most enchanters can either out-sustain or straight up shield the damage that these mage supports poke out. Maybe that changes with the durability changes next patch, but honestly, I see it shifting even more towards the enchanters since they will be less easy to pop. So mage supports, poke supports right now aren't super hot. Teemo, I always got to include Teemo on these things. I genuinely think Teemo is the most underrated support in the entire game. Now, is he super good? Is he top tier? No. But people think that he's a tier 5. He's actually a tier 3. Very, very low econ champion. And when I say low econ, I mean he basically needs one item to operate. Like one item to do what you want to do out of Teemo. So operating on a support budget economically is pretty good to plug in champions that don't need gold. But that being said, he does have a lot of rough matchups, and he's not going to bring to the table what you actually expect out of a support. He is a purely damage champion. I personally love him, and I think that he's I've played him in Diamond quite a lot. I've even played him in Grandmaster Elo, and to middling success, but it can work, and I do think that people severely underestimate this champion in the support world. I hope that someday there comes along like a new item or a crazy build that makes people realize just how good this champion is in support. Braum. He got buffed this patch. Yay. Okay, moving on. Gragas. So Gragas is kind of a diverse champion in that you can build him Phase Rush, Comet, or Aftershock. Now, usually in the support role, you're just locking him in as a big dumb frontliner, right? But he does actually have some like pretty insane combos, like the E-Flash, which basically leaves no counterplay. E-Flash Ultimate, there carries into your team. Pretty much no counterplay to that. And he, just like Galio, is pretty good against the other tank supports. He is probably only going to be relegated to being a counter pick to someone like Leona, because Leona has this big wind-up animation with her E, right? It's very easy to see it coming. Gragas just body slams into it, and now Leona doesn't get to engage. But if you're going to talk about counter picks, you cannot leave Morgana out of the discussion. She is the queen of the counter picks. All these champions like Gragas and Galio, who are tanks but kind of good against other tanks, Morgana is the anti-engage champion. There's nothing else to say about it. If they have hard engage on your team and you don't need to lock in a tank yourself, like your team already has a frontliner elsewhere, Morgana, max spell shield. The engaged player doesn't get to play. Zac, another champion who is just pretty like low econ. I've been playing a lot of Zac recently, actually. He's pretty good. He's much better than people think he is. The fact that he has no mana to manage, the fact that you can just max E and get these huge, long, screen-wide engages from out of nowhere. He is a champion that does have like some pretty specific combos, and like you have to land your Q or else your engage is pretty weak. But If you put in a couple games, Zach is very, very playable in the support role. Amumu, I had him lower on this tier list, but then I was watching some T1 streams, and I realized that he's being played quite a bit in Korea. So there has to be something there. Now, I haven't played Amumu in a while. I can't personally attest to how strong he is, but like he's being played in the best region at the highest level. So, you know, I might have to do some experimenting. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see me try out some like new glacial builds that I've seen. Xerath, we've pretty much already talked about this guy. Ornn is really he's one of those champions that like, if you already have proper engage, you can lock in Ornn. If you're for some reason assuming that the game's going to go to 40 minutes, you can get out like 3 empowered items with his passive. I wouldn't really be playing Ornn too much though. Bard is one of those champions. Bard and Thresh are the 2 champions that I say if you are like one tricks on these champions are always going to be good. Doesn't really matter their numbers. Their kits are just absolutely insane. So if you're a one trick, Thresh is never going to be worse than where he is right now. Like I think this is the absolute worst Thresh has been in years. Same with Bard. But if you're good with the champions, they're still so top tier. Tahm Kench, very, very matchup reliant, very, very synergy reliant. I think Tahm Kench being played in the support position with a Senna, doesn't even matter which one of them's farming. So you could do like Starving Senna, you could do regular ADC Senna. Doesn't matter. Those 2 champions together are absolute Thanos. Beyond that, it's a little more hit or miss, but Tahm Kench and Senna, they just have such incredible synergy for each other, especially ever since they've reworked Tahm Kench, and now he gives like a massive freaking shield on his R. So Senna can get caught, he just scoops her up, spits her out, she's got like a 900 HP shield. But yeah, you're just going to be running Guardian and body blocking for Senna. Just create space for that champion, and she will win the game for you. So tier 3, if he's with Senna, or tier 3 if he's not with Senna, I would say tier 2 or above if he's with Senna. We've already talked about Brand. Now, Maokai, I'm actually going to move this guy up here. We're going to talk about him later. Thresh, already talked about him. Nico, this is pretty much just a worse, riskier version of Lux. Vigar, he's one of those champions that like a lot of people think that he still works as a support. I think he's very, very wonky. That just might be me not being able to pilot the champion properly, but I don't think he's super hot as support. But he has that cage, so he's never going to be terrible, right? Now, Taliyah and Swain, both of these champions, as of today, have been reworked, and these reworks were not support-specific. However, these reworks were net buffs for the champion. So Taliyah in mid is better, Taliyah in jungle is better, Taliyah in support is better. Same with Swain. He's better in top, he's better in mid, he's better in support. Are they top tier? And were these support-focused, reworks or whatever? No, but they're better champions than they were before, which means they're better supports than they were before. That's, enough said. All right, let's get into the tier 2 now. This is where I start recommending these are the actual champions that you play to climb. We've already mentioned a little bit about the current meta of League of Legends, from low elo to high elo. It's all about enchanters and things that are really good against enchanters. There's very few exceptions to that, so we'll talk about them right away. Zilean is not necessarily an enchanter, but I do think he's absolutely slept on. This champion brings an insane amount of utility, decent gold, or decent damage, sorry. And also, one of the strongest things is that he's got really diverse build paths. You can pretty much build whatever you want on this champion. You can go full tank. I've seen Locket Zilean. You can go utility, like Shirelia's, or even Moonstone. You can go full damage if you're lacking AP damage, like with Ludens. You can really just lock this champion in. I assuming that you have a frontline elsewhere, because I always recommend that you have a frontline on the team. But yeah, so Zilean and Zyra are the only 2 exceptions to that, enchanters and things that are good against them. These champions aren't necessarily super good against enchanters. Zyra is outperforming all the other mages, and we've already talked about Zilean. So talking about the stuff that's really good right now, enchanters. Karma is the worst one. Rel is the, I would say, worst of the really good tanks. I think that she is getting slept on, and I really wish that Riot would give her more attention, because she's not fun to play, and that's what keeps most people from playing her. She's very clunky, but every time I see a Rel, they actually perform really well. Lux, just a better version of Nico support. Same strengths as Zilean. You can pretty much build her whatever. You can go Comet, you can go Guardian, full AP, utility, and that's a pretty big strength to have a support, to be able to, diversify your build paths. Renata Glask. I have a feeling Renata is going to find her place in League of Legends just like Rel. I am seeing her play rate drop off patch after patch. I am seeing her get nerfed despite not seeing anyone play her. But I do think she is quite strong. Now, she did take a bit of a hit this patch. I think she lost like 3 armor or something. So Riot is saying people succeed with her. And when I do see her, rarely, she is actually quite good. Maokai. Maokai slept on, absolutely slept on. One of the best tank champions in the game. You've got 3 different keystones you can go for: First Strike, Aftershock, Comet. I guess you could even go Glacial if you're really feeling spicy. I think one of the biggest strengths of this champion is that you absolutely can't misplay on him. You know, he's so useful for area of zone control with his E, so you can slap those in the bushes. You can also put them in the entrances to the dragon. So like if you get to the dragon 40 seconds before it spawns and your team like escorts you there as Maokai, you can sapling up the entire area and they can't contest that dragon. It is the most underrated champion, I think, in the entire support role right now. Maybe even more underrated than Teemo. But yeah, I see everybody saying that Maokai is terrible. Maokai is terrible. I think Maokai is actually quite good. Janna, everybody knows Janna. She's pretty good right now. Not much else to say. She doesn't have like incredible matchups. There's no real reason she's good. She's just good. Sona is the anti-enchanter enchanter. That's what I've always said about Sona. If the enemy team locks in an enchanter, you should lock in Sona, because what that means is that basically they have no kill potential in lane against you. You're going to get to scale up for free, and nobody scales harder numbers wise than Sona. There are champions with better kits than Sona in the late game that are better equipped for 5v5 skirmishes or picks and stuff like that. But Sona, numbers wise, nobody pumps out more healing, nobody pumps out more utility, nobody pumps out more damage. Like, Sona's numbers are just overtuned. So if the enemy team locks in an enchanter, lock in Sona, boom, you get the scale for free. Congratulations. Tier 1. Now, this is a controversial one, but as the rank 1 Senna, I am very confident in saying that Senna is very good right now. She does well against enchanters. She scales well alongside the other hyper carries. She just does really, really well. And I moved her up in the tier list because her biggest counter, Pike, is not going to be played anymore. This champion's dead, right? So who's going to kill Senna? Nautilus is going to kill Senna. Absolute best tank champion right now in the support role by far. You can go Aftershock or Glacial. You win lane level starting level 1. You can outroam anybody. You've got point and click CC. You've got lots of types of CC. So one of the biggest flaws of Leona is that all of her CC is reduced by tenacity, but Nautilus has 2 different knockups: the knockup with the hook and the knockup with his ultimate, of course. And that's not reduced by tenacity. So Legend Tenacity and Merc Treads is way less effective against Nautilus. Now, he's not as tanky as he used to be in previous seasons, especially because most people are going Glacial, but this champion will murder any of these champions, hands down. He's good against Senna. He's good against the enchanters. He's even good against the other tanks. So let's talk about the other tanks. Blitzcrank and Nautilus, by far the best tank champions in the game. Blitzcrank is pretty self-explanatory. He does one thing, and people say that Blitzcrank doesn't scale well, but he kind of scales really well, because if you land one hook in the late game, it's game-changing, right? He's also obviously super good against all these super squishy, immobile enchanters. Lulu, she's been insanely top meta for like 2 years now. Not really much else to say about it. She pairs well with almost every champion in the game. She has point-and-click CC with her poly. I think that Lulu's going to be picker ban next patch, but she is already picker ban this patch, in my opinion. Soraka is a little more niche. I really want to be locking her against like anything that can bully or possibly win lane against her, because that's one of the biggest strengths of Soraka, is that you can just kind of auto, and if you land your Q, you can just auto out-trade pretty much anybody. But if you're against like a more aggro ADC like a Tristana or a Draven, they're not going to be taking that from you, and they're just going to jump on you and kill you. But if it's a passive lane or a scaling lane or a lane that you can bully, Soraka is A++++. Nami comes with a little bit of, an asterisk. Nami is tier 1 if you lock her in with Lucian. I'm sure you've seen this combo before. Electrocute Nami and Lucian running anything is really, really good. Lucian dashes forward, you empower him, and you proc Electrocute from a mile away, and you just kill them at level 2. So those are my thoughts on the current patch 12.9. Sorry, this is supposed to say 12.9. 12.9. 12.9 tier list. Now, we are going to be doing another tier list because, again, next patch is the massive durability changes. It's going to change everything, guys. This tier list is going to look very, very different. There are going to be champions that are much better. There are going to be champions that are much worse. But that's for next patch. This is the patch for the next 2 weeks. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this, got a little bit of education out of it, and you're much more well-equipped to go climb in solo queue. As always, if you have any questions about anything that I've said or covered, or you want something explained a little more in depth, or you just have a random question, put it down in the comment section, guys. I actually do read those. And yeah, that's it. 12.9 tier list for the support role. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel and check me out at Twitch, twitch.tv/Ioki. Link in the description. Take it easy. Peace.